It's happened." "Happened?" asked Owl, still confused. "Yes," said the Skunk, "in the thicket."
Storybugs.
Hello and welcome to Storytime. I'm so excited because we are going to finish chapter 10 of our Bambi chapter book. And this was adapted from the film by Joan Ryder, illustrated by David Pacheco and Jesse Clay. Now, the last time the forest was on fire, but Feline and Bambi were safe at the end, which was so exciting. So now let's see what happens in chapter 10. The fire burned much of the forest and left many animals homeless. But a forest can survive a fire. By spring, new green seedlings were shooting up near the scorched tree trunks. In time, they would be young, tall trees. Through the ashes, new shoots sprouted, and from them, flowers would soon bloom. Life was going on. Where the woods were spared, the animals made new homes for themselves. They had survived both the fire and another winter, and they were glad that spring had returned. One warm morning, Owl was again sleeping in his tree, snoring loudly and contentedly. Through the brush, Thumper and his 4 children ran, hopping onto the log under Owl's tree. Each of the rabbits began thumping on the log to get the sleeping bird's attention. Wake up, friend Owl," called Thumper. "Wake up, friend Owl," the rabbit children called. "Oh, what now?" said Owl sleepily. "Hey, what's going on around here?" But Thumper and his children were too excited to stay around and chat. Befuddled, Owl watched the rabbits dash through the woods. Then Flower ran by, calling up to Owl, "It's happened." "Happened?" asked Owl, still confused. "Yes," said the Skunk, "in the thicket." Flower looked behind and called to a tiny skunk who was following him, "Hurry up, Bambi." "Yes, Papa, I'm coming," said the little skunk named Bambi. Everyone in the woods seemed to be headed toward the thicket. Pheasants ran along the ground. Above them, chipmunks and squirrels raced through the tall trees. Even a mole and his family joined in the parade. As 4 bumps in the ground sped toward the thicket. On, above, and below the earth, everyone was heading to the same place. In the thicket, Feline was resting. All the animals crowded around looking at her. The moles' heads popped up out of their tunnels right in front to get the best view. Even Sleepy Owl did not want to miss this moment, and he landed on a branch overhead. "Ah," sighed the animals. "Oh my." "Look," said a raccoon, "2 of them." Next to Feline were 2 spotted fawns. One fawn woke up, blinking as it looked at all the smiling faces watching it. The other fawn tried to get up on its long legs, but they were too wobbly. "Well, sir," said Owl, "I don't believe I've ever seen a more likely looking pair of fawns." Feline looked tenderly at her 2 babies. She thought they were so wonderful. "Prince Bambi ought to be mighty proud," said Owl. Feline smiled and gazed up at the tall cliff above the thicket. She could see Bambi standing against the sky. Next to him, his father stood proud too. Then the old stag left, letting Bambi watch over the woods alone. From the cliff, Bambi could see his home, the forest that had survived as he had, harsh winters and fire. These woods were his, and they were full of life again. He was the prince of the forest. And now there were new children to protect and care for, just as his mother and father had taken care of him. Bambi looked down at the thicket where his beloved Feline lay near his two children. The sight of his family filled Bambi's heart with happiness and love. It was spring in the woods, and the joyful stag listened to the birds chirping nearby. On this very special morning, their merry songs once more filled the woods with the wonderful news that life was beginning again. Thank you guys for reading that story with me. All these different chapters all together, it just makes me remember too that even though the hard things happen, like he said, life begins again and goes on. Thank you guys for joining me for this story, and I hope you'll come back for another one. If you guys enjoyed reading that story, would you please click subscribe down below? We read new stories just like this one every day, and we would love to let you know when there's a new story to listen to.